Evelyn Carter, a 67-year-old widow, had been living alone on her late husband Robert Carter's old farmland in rural Oregon for many years. The land was peaceful on the surface, wide fields, dense pine trees, and an old farmhouse that held decades of memories. After Robert's death, Evelyn's life became quiet and repetitive. Every Thursday, she would visit a small roadside café at the edge of town, not because she needed food or coffee, but because it reminded her of better times when life still felt complete. Her son, Daniel Carter, now 42, and his wife Hannah Blake, 39, would occasionally visit her, but their visits had slowly changed over time. What once felt like family care now felt like pressure wrapped in polite concern. On a cold autumn afternoon, everything in Evelyn's life shifted in a way she could never have imagined. She was sitting inside the café, watching the gray Oregon sky through the window, when a stranger entered. The woman looked to be in her early 50s, dressed in a dark coat that seemed too heavy for the weather. She moved directly toward Evelyn, as if she had known her for years. Without asking permission, the woman placed a thin envelope on the table and leaned in slightly. In a low, controlled voice, she whispered, "You will need this tonight. Whatever happens, do not open it here." Then, just as quickly as she had arrived, she turned and walked out of the café, disappearing into the parking lot before Evelyn could even react. That moment left Evelyn frozen, her heart beating faster than she could understand. Later that night, after returning home, Evelyn finally opened the envelope. Inside was a small brass key and a handwritten note with only a few words. "Do not trust them. 11:32 p.m. Answer only." The message made no sense, yet it filled her with a strange sense of fear. As she sat alone in her kitchen, the silence of the house felt heavier than usual. Every sound outside the window seemed louder, the wind, the trees, even the settling of the old wooden structure. When the clock finally reached 11:32, her phone rang. The screen showed no number. When she answered, what she heard made her blood run cold. A voice spoke from the other side of the line. Distorted but deeply familiar. It sounded like Robert Carter, her dead husband. The voice warned her not to trust Daniel or Hannah, and not to trust the police if they came involved. It said the land beneath her home was not just soil and trees, but something hidden and dangerous. The voice insisted that Robert's death was not an accident and that there was something buried beneath the property that people were willing to kill for. Before Evelyn could ask anything, the call suddenly ended, leaving her in complete silence. When she checked her phone history, there was no record of the call at all. The next morning, Daniel arrived unannounced. He brought coffee and forced a calm smile, but his eyes kept scanning the house as if he was inspecting something. Hannah joined him later, arriving with documents and financial statements that Evelyn had never seen before. They began speaking gently but firmly, suggesting that Evelyn was no longer capable of managing the farm alone. They claimed the land was too expensive, too isolated, and too dangerous for someone her age. Slowly, their words shifted from suggestions to pressure. They talked about selling the property, moving her closer to town, and even mentioned legal guardianship for her protection. Evelyn, however, noticed something different beneath their words. It was not concern, it was control. Every sentence they spoke felt rehearsed, as if they had already decided her future without her consent. Hannah even hinted that accidents happen on isolated farms, a comment that made Evelyn's stomach tighten. Daniel avoided direct eye contact, as if torn between guilt and obedience. For the first time, Evelyn began to feel like a stranger in her own home, surrounded not by family, but by people hiding something far deeper. That night, Evelyn went into her late husband Robert's old office, a room she had avoided since his death. The air inside still carried the smell of wood and machinery. As she searched through his files, she found something unusual, documents that did not match anything she remembered. Hidden folders contained bank withdrawals, secret notes, and photographs of areas on the property she had never been allowed to visit. One document had her name written in Robert's handwriting, warning her not to ask questions where she might not be safe. Confused and shaken, Evelyn continued searching. Eventually, she discovered encrypted emails between Robert and a criminal defense investigator named Grant Mercer. The messages suggested that Robert had been tracking illegal activity involving the land. There were references to hidden access points beneath the property, suspicious nighttime activity, and unknown vehicles entering the forested areas. The deeper she read, the clearer it became that Robert had uncovered something extremely dangerous. A message arrived on Evelyn's phone from an unknown number: "They are watching you now. Do not trust anyone who pushes you to sell." That was the moment Evelyn realized her husband's warnings were real. Whatever was happening beneath the land was still active, and those involved were now moving closer to her. In the days that followed, Daniel and Hannah's pressure increased. They no longer pretended to be patient. They spoke about urgency, legal authority, and Evelyn's declining health. A local deputy even visited the house, supporting their claims and suggesting Evelyn needed temporary protection. The situation felt coordinated, as if multiple people were working toward the same goal. Evelyn began to understand she was being cornered into giving up the property. One night, everything escalated. Daniel arrived with Hannah and the same deputy, demanding entry into the house. When Evelyn refused, their tone changed completely. They accused her of confusion and instability, claiming she was no longer safe to make decisions alone. The deputy threatened legal action if she did not cooperate. Realizing she was about to lose control of her own life, Evelyn made a desperate decision: she ran. She escaped through the back of the house into the dark forest behind her property. The same land she had walked for decades now felt unfamiliar and dangerous. Flashlights followed her through the trees as Daniel shouted for her to stop. Her heart pounded as she moved toward a section of the land she had always been told to avoid. There, beneath the roots of old trees, she dug frantically until her hand struck something solid, a sealed container buried in the earth. Footsteps closed in behind her, but Evelyn managed to pull the container free and run. Just as Daniel reached her, a vehicle appeared on a hidden service road. A woman's voice called out from inside, telling her to get in. It was Claire Donovan, the same woman from the café. Without hesitation, Evelyn climbed into the car as it sped away, leaving her son standing in the darkness behind her. Claire eventually explained everything. The container held flash drives, documents, and a letter from Robert Carter. It confirmed that Daniel had been indirectly involved in illegal operations connected to the land, and Hannah had helped coordinate financial control over it. Robert had discovered the truth years earlier and had been working with investigators in secret. His death, Claire revealed, was not accidental; it had been caused during an attempt to silence him. Evelyn felt her world collapse, but she also felt clarity for the first time. The people she trusted had become part of something dangerous. With federal investigators now involved, a plan was formed to expose everything. Evelyn sent a message to Daniel and Hannah, pretending to agree to return the container and discuss selling the property. That night, they returned with the same deputy, believing they had finally gained control. But instead, they walked into a trap. Federal agents were already inside the house. Within moments, the situation turned. Commands filled the air, weapons were drawn, and all three, Daniel, Hannah, and the deputy, were taken into custody as evidence was revealed. In the aftermath, Evelyn learned that Robert had left her a protected trust that ensured no one could force her off the land. He had prepared for this outcome long before his death, silently protecting her future even as his own life ended in tragedy. Months later, the farm no longer felt like a place of fear. The hidden corruption had been exposed, and the land was slowly returning to peace. Daniel faced legal consequences, Hannah was charged for her role, and the system that protected them collapsed under evidence. Evelyn remained on the land alone, but not broken. For the first time in years, she walked freely without fear. The same soil that once held secrets now felt like something stable again. She understood finally that truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the surface. Moral lesson, final reflection. This story shows that greed and betrayal can destroy even the strongest family bonds. When trust is broken for power or money, it leads only to loss and regret. In the end, truth always rises, no matter how deeply it is buried. Real strength is not control or wealth, but patience, honesty, and the courage to stand for what is right even when everything feels uncertain.